lovely and darling viewers, it's Jen here at Check Her Joy, and this time I'm reviewing Jekyll and Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson, or The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I listened to the audiobook by this, and it was read by Ian Holm. This is also a reread for me, and it's also so entrenched in pop culture that the ending also wasn't really a huge surprise. It's probably already been spoiled for you. I'm going to try to do a spoiler-free review, though, but it might be hard. So this is a Victorian Gothic novella. It is set in London, and it follows this lawyer, Mr. Utterson. And one of his clients is Dr. Jekyll. And Dr. Jekyll has left his entire fortune to this character of Mr. Hyde that Utterson has never heard of before. And this story follows Utterson kind of investigating and compiling all this information and making a case about what's going on with Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So Hyde's not a great character. He just randomly shows up and then bad things start happening. So right away, the very first story we hear about Mr. Hyde in the opening pages is that he beat up a girl, basically, in the streets of London. So he's walking down the street at night, it's dark, they round a corner, they bump into each other. Normally, you just, apologize and keep going, but Hyde is so mad at this girl that he starts kicking her and beating her up and knocking her to the ground and stomping on her in this really, really, really violent way. The girl's parents rush over there and they're making a scene, and Enfield comes over and they call for a doctor because the girl's bleeding and she might die. And eventually the doctor comes and he's like, well, I think she's going to be okay, but this is not good. So Enfield confronts Hyde and he's like, that's not how you act in society. How are you going to make this right? We should start telling everybody about you. And Hyde's like, you know what? Don't say anything. Hush, hush. We'll keep this between us. I can get you some money. I can get you about 100 pounds. How's that sound? So he goes through this secret door, and he comes back with a check signed by a very esteemed gentleman who is not Mr. Hyde. And later in the book, we find out that it's actually Dr. Jekyll who signed it. So this whole story about Mr. Hyde, combined with the fact that Hyde is Jekyll's sole heir, which Utterson is friends with Jekyll, has never heard of this man before, it's a little suspicious. So, and then just everything he hears about Hyde is not good. Jekyll's servants don't seem to like him. Nobody who meets him seems to like him. He's this very seedy character, and very violent. And so there's this big scene where we find out that Hyde has murdered somebody. Not just murdered somebody, but murdered an MP, a member of parliament, an esteemed guy who was incredibly innocent, and Hyde just killed him in cold blood. And so there's a manhunt going on for Hyde, and Utterson goes to confront Jekyll. He's like, what is going on? Who is this guy? Why are you protecting him? Why is he your sole heir? And Jekyll's like, you know what? Hyde's gone. He left London. He's on the run. He's not coming back. Don't worry about it. It's good. Utterson's weary. Not entirely sure that he's okay with this, but eventually drops it. He trusts Jekyll. And then Jekyll becomes a recluse, stops talking to anybody. Things get weird. And the end of the book culminates with one of Jekyll's servants, the butler, coming to get Utterson and being like, hey, weird stuff is going on. And then we find out the big secret of what's been going on, and it's pretty dramatic and crazy. The overall tone of this book is very creepy. Utterson is going around investigating, but not really knowing what he's investigating or what he's getting himself into. And every report that comes back about Hyde is super creepy, and he comes out really violent. He looks grotesque. He looks animalistic and deformed and unkempt and just really savage and primeval, as opposed to Dr. Jekyll, who was perfectly well-groomed and well-kept, and the, height of London society, and so well-regarded and esteemed by everybody. And then even the other characters, Mr. Utterson is still a gentleman. He's a lawyer. He's in, good standing. He's got other friends who are, Enfield, his cousin, and I think it's Langley or Langford, mutual friend of Jekyll and Utterson's, and he's also this upright gentleman, and it's all these very upstanding guys telling the story, and kind of makes what happens really creepy. There's definitely a lot of violence, and of course there's the murder in here. But like just the overall tone in which it's written is dark. There's a lot of foggy London alleys with corners and hidden doors and gates that we don't know really where they lead to. So the setting is very creepy. The whole way it's written is very creepy. And yet somehow this book surprises me every time I read it. There's one line in here where Utterson talks about how he's going to go investigate Hyde, and he's like, if he'd be Mr. Hyde, then I'd be Mr. Seek. And that one just cracks me up like every time I read it. It is a short book. I listened to the audiobook for this, which was 2.5 hours. In this edition, with the fine print, it's only 64 pages. So a really short book. You can get through this really fast. But it's a good, creepy Halloween story, which is why I reread it. If you guys haven't read Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, I totally recommend it. It's a classic for a reason. Go check it out. Seriously. It's really good. Really spooky. Great story. So now I'm going to talk about the giant spoiler and what it means and stuff that you probably already know. So Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde are actually the same person. Dr. Jekyll has created this potion through experiments, and he can transform himself into Hyde, who is this, he doesn't look like Jekyll at all. Jekyll is this tall, skinny guy. Jekyll's a little bit shorter, looks a little bit stouter, definitely hairier. There's stuff about his face not looking right. And through Hyde, Jekyll is able to go out and really give into his darkest desires. He can go be violent and not have to hold his temper all the time. And apparently he can go around killing people. There's also just suggestions that Hyde might be partaking in other really nefarious, sinful parts of society that we don't see. So maybe he's going around whoring. Maybe he's having an affair with women. Maybe he's just beating people up for the fun of it. Victorian Fight Club. We don't really know what Hyde is all up to. So there's really tons and tons of interpretations of this. The main themes of this basically are the good versus evil and how man has both inside of them that we have to choose. And that's really what Jekyll talks about in his great reveal at the end. Like there's a letter left written from Dr. Jekyll explaining how we did it and why. And so in this letter, we finally get a glimpse into Jekyll's head, and one of his reasons was that he wanted to go, that he felt repressed. He felt the pressure of having to be this perfect person as being too much. There are also a lot of people who talk about how they were members of Victorian society who would be upright and upstanding with their family and be good gentlemen, and then at night they would go party in the shadier bits of town, where their family didn't see them and like commits, and they go drinking or they go visit prostitutes and stuff they wouldn't necessarily want their friends and their wives especially to know. So this could be an allegory of Victorian society. There's also two interpretations about like multiple personality disorder. There's tons and tons of ways to read this book and interpret it. It's really short and really concise, so every single sentence in here is like very much a part of the story. There's no part where you're like, okay, well, this is an unnecessary tangent, I'm bored. Like all of it is so vital to this story and figuring out what's going off with Hyde and Jekyll, and it's so creepy and well done. It's very spooky, and I love the mad scientist aspect. It's also a lovely warning about not doing crazy mad scientist experiments, and especially not doing mad scientist experiments on yourself. Yeah, but definitely duality man is the main thing of this. That was weird. So definitely the duality of man and the good versus evil is the main takeaway, I think, from this book. So like I said, I really like it. It's really spooky. I really enjoyed it. And I highly recommend Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It is totally 5 stars. Everything about it is just great. It's great in a very spooky way, not like you should go out and try to repeat Jekyll's experiments. That wouldn't be good. Yes. This book is a classic for a reason. Go read it. That's what I'm saying. So let me know if you have read this story and what you think of it. What are your favorite movie adaptations or television shows? I really like the BBC Jekyll with like James Nesbitt playing Jekyll and Hyde in a modern setting. It's amazing. I highly recommend that. And movie Mary Riley is also really good. Those are my favorite adaptations. Yeah. Peace out. I love you guys and keep reading. Bye.